If you work for the Catholic Church and want to transform the culture of your parish and put more souls in the pews, we're here to help. I'm Ty Hua, here with my co-host John Cons, and this is the Catholic Ministries Professionals Podcast, your favorite leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Each week, you can expect engaging discussions, expert interviews, and actionable advice to help you move your mission forward in your parish. Today, we're moving from frustration to fun, rediscovering the joy in your parish. John, I'm a little out of practice. if you can't tell.
You've only said it like 120 times.
Yeah, but I kind of go into zombie mode when I read the scripts. Like I just kind of tune out what I actually need to think about saying, and I just read the words.
Your brain's ahead of where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Or
well, not
behind.
even that. So and this brings up this is kind of off script, and it's been on my heart. It's been on my mind.
Tell me more.
It's no surprise because usually my analogies either stem from my sales background or from my passion for golf. And I'm gonna tie this up. I'm gonna bring it full circle here. But do you ever work in and around just kind of routine, right? Even driving, like taking your kids to daycare, or you go to the grocery store, and it's like, you got to the grocery store, you got to daycare, but you're like, I actually don't remember driving. You ever have that happen?
100%. Yeah.
That's what I just did with the intro to this.
So now we're here at the beginning. You don't remember how we got here.
Right. But no, and here's how I'm going to tie it together. So I was working with my golf coach, right? And I keep regressing. Like I have this great aha moment with him. I get back to my home course. I'm working on the range, chipping area, putting. Everything's great. I play, I go shoot a good score. And then like 3 or 4 weeks of just playing and practicing, I regress. It's like my driver's not working. My iron's not working the way that it should be, or it did right after I worked with him. Right. And then I go to him and I'm like, dude, something's broke. Something's like not good. He's like, okay, well, let's just take a look. Let's go back to the basics. And sure enough, he's like, yeah, you're not doing this. We talked about that. You're not doing it. It's like, okay. Oh, the basic stuff, right? And so he pulls up this thing and he tells me, you have Dunning-Kruger syndrome. I'm like, is there a prescription for it? Or he goes, no, it's a mindset, right? And what the Dunning-Kruger syndrome says is amateurs think that the basics are below them, so they skip over it. Where the professionals say, no, the basics got me to where I am. I need to focus more on it, right? So an example would be the ABCs, as he calls them, is alignment, ball position, and correct grip, right? Like those are the basics. Scotty Scheffler, who just came back from a 4-shot deficit on Sunday, literally, if you watch him on the range, after every, if you're listening and not watching, after every shot on the range, he's checking his grip on the club. Most amateurs don't even know what the correct grip is. They don't know what the correct alignment is. Yep, John's pointing at himself. But I literally was skipping over the basics. Now, to tie it all together, it's like, yeah, we're over 100 and some episodes, John. I am primarily the one that does the intro, but I skip over the basics of like, what are we talking about? Like, how am I going to draw the listeners in on this intro? Because every intro is different. It's not like we pre-record the intro and then put it in.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times throughout the day as Catholic ministry professionals or just professionals in general do we skip over the basics? You know, in sales, we could say, well, did you skip over just a great introduction? Like, hi, my name's Ty. What's your name? How can I help you? What brought you in today? Right? Yes, I say all the time, hey, we want to help you overcome team dysfunctions. We want to help put more souls in the pews. We want to help you to avoid burnout. I say it, but am I actually meaning it? Is it part of my vision and mission to do that every single day, right? You talk about it all the time. Hey, we have to have that clear vision. We came up with a clear vision, but every day are we living out that vision? So for the listeners, Dunning-Kruger syndrome. Don't skip the basics. Don't complicate your day by trying to add on to this vision and mission statement. You already came up with it. Now go out and live it. So,
Well, and I think that ties in nicely to what we're talking about today, right? Moving from frustration to fun. And I want to say it feels a little kitschy, but I asked ChatGPT to come up with some titles, and I thought that one made me giggle. But it's really about rediscovering joy in your parish work, right? The joy in the pursuit of those basics. And that when we dial those in, we experience more joy. And we experience this, like you said, in ministry too, Ty, that parish leaders, parish staff, we carry a lot of responsibilities. And the longer we're in ministry, the joy that we initially had at first can get replaced by just the mundanity of it. So that we're just showing up, going through the motions. Really, we notice the meetings stack up. There's always one more meeting to add. Our programs demand more energy because we're always trying to maybe one up what we did last year, but really what we need to do is get down to the basics again. And then just even like the relationships in the parish, as things change, evolve, whatever, the relationships can feel strained. So over time, it starts to feel like work instead of the calling that initially was. So what I want to do, though, is help us today to intentionally rediscover joy in our works so that we don't just feel lighter, but we bear more fruit through that. And joy, since it is one of the fruits of the Spirit, when it's present, it transforms how we lead. It transforms how people experience us and the parish, and how the mission of the church itself can move forward. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, we want to bring in a key scripture verse, and this is from Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And this verse just reminds us that joy, it's not optional. It's foundational. It's a fruit of the Spirit. It's the mark of the Christian, right? When parish life begins to feel exhausting, the strength that we need doesn't just come from working harder, right? But from resting in the joy of the Lord. And right, you talk about getting back to basics, Ty. That's the basics of ministry work, right? Joy flows from relationship with Jesus, and that joy is what fuels ministry that lasts and bears fruit. And this joy, when we experience, then it goes out and transforms that which is around us. I've seen this in my own work, and I think one of the classic stories, I've probably told it before, is my experience with one of the first ministry, like small groups that I was in charge of in ministry, was my guys group that met in the mornings. And we met at 6:45 a.m. before the school day started. And so that meant I had to be up even earlier. I had to bring the donuts, yada, yada, yada. And I resented having to get up. And that transferred into the group basically falling apart, except for two kids that wouldn't stop showing up. You flash forward about a year, I go through a pretty intense reconversion to the faith, and I'm back to basics. I'm praying, I'm doing those things, and my joy begins to build. And then I enter into relationship with this small group, and the numbers doubled from what it previously was beforehand. So just this reality that, again, joy seeps into the ministry we do. And when we have those foundational pieces in place, when we get back to those basics, we really can experience more joy, and that flows outward into the rest of our work and into the parish. So today we want to talk about 3 things that can help us to rediscover joy in our parish work. And those are the things we're going to talk about today. Ty, you even kind of primed these. I don't know how long you were looking at the script ahead of time, but these tie right back in. All right. So this first one is reconnecting with your why. And Ty, you just talked about that.
These tie right back in?
This ties right in. No, so you have to reconnect with your why, right? And this is assuming that you've spent some time thinking about why you're in ministry. And hopefully it's not just it was the only job available. Hopefully it was a perceived calling. And if it's not that way for you, you may need to reassess where you're working and why. But to take some time really to think about the mission that you have been called to steward. I was just reading this, one of the daily mass readings, and it's where Moses is handing on, right as before he's about to die, he's kind of given his last talk to the Israelites. And he talks about how you have to think about this story that we've been given, right? God did all of these great things with all of these people in the past, and he felt so connected to them that he has now handed this on to you, right? The great prophets, all the great the fathers of the faith, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. God united himself to them, and we are inheritors of that story that goes back thousands of years through Jesus and up until now. And this is the thing that you have been called to steward. And we have to take time to really remember why we said yes to this ministry in the first place. And anything less than because it is worthy of my time, because God has called me to do it. Like, we have to think about that and write it down, pray over it, and let it anchor us in our work. And I think that that's really important, because when you don't have that guiding star, that North Star to kind of like put you in place, that's when all these other things, you say yes to one more meeting, even though you don't have time. Those things get in the way. You have a ministry that's dead and dry and dusty, and it needs to be fixed or sunsetted. And you're not doing it because you're just afraid to have that one confrontational conversation that you're going to need to have, right? We lose sight of the importance of following through on these things in the day-to-day when we don't remember the enormity of the task, the enormity of the mission, the beauty of the mission, the call that we have received. And Ty, I'm thinking about Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and I want to recommend that too for our listeners. Like, if you're having trouble reconnecting with why, he puts it in a way that really is helpful for connecting it not just to our hearts, but then to the work that we do in the day-to-day and how we can call people into that mission.
Yeah, I can't recommend that book enough. I mean, it literally changed how I even sell, right, in my day job, in my secular world. Even to the point where, the passions that I have in golf or whatever other hobby that I have, I have a very firm why I do what I do, right? Like, for me, I'm a very competitive guy. John, I don't know if you know that or not, but super competitive. And if I don't have an outlet, it kind of affects the other things in my life. That it's a healthy competition that I need. And with golf, it's literally, I don't care if I'm golfing against 20 guys or 100 guys or girls, doesn't matter. I'm competing against myself because I want to be better than myself as I played yesterday. That is my main goal. Yeah, there are competitions that I play in, there are tournaments that I play in, but my why is the driving force behind everything that I do, right? As a husband, as a father, as a friend, like, what is my reasoning for the breath in my lungs, right? So I think the people that are feeling the burnout actually don't really know they're burnt out. They don't actually vocalize, "Hey, I'm burnt out," until it's probably almost too late, John. There are certain things that they do and they feel throughout the day that somebody like you coming in for a retreat or a consultation or even a free discovery call, you can pinpoint, yeah, that person's burnt out before before they actually quit. Right. And I don't know if you can kind of elaborate on just a few of those of, like, man, when I have a conversation with Ethel and she says this, I know she's on the cusp of really that making that definitive decision of, like, I'm going to step away from ministry, or I don't really give a crap about what the why is or what's going on. It's a paycheck. I'm clocking in and then I'm clocking out.
Mm.
So I don't know if there are a couple of
a
instances.
couple that come to mind is the person who just thinks they're too busy for anything. I'm too busy for anything, and there's no way to fix it. And I saw this just literally at the last workshop I was at, that we do a process, an exercise we walk through, like, hey, I want you to set up what your ideal day would be. And one particular participant raised their hand and said, I just had to laugh at, like, there's no possible way. So this person has gotten themselves to the point where they can't even dream about, like, an ideal way to set up their day. Like, that's a sure sign. Like, you're headed to burnout. You have no room in your day to do anything, to plan anything. Like, your entire day is set up as a slave to all the things that are happening around you. That's a recipe for burnout. Like, you need to have room to respond to the Spirit. And sometimes the Spirit might say, hey, this person came in, they need you more than the 100 other people that are going to be at this event that you're running tonight. Right? You have to have room to be able to do that. And without room, without freedom, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. There has to be freedom in that. So that's one of the key ones that I would say that comes up, is people are trapped in the whirlwind to the point where they can't possibly see how these things could lay down or stack up or line up in a way that could give them some breathing space. I think that's the number one piece. The other one I would say that is a recipe for burnout, is like a precursor for that, is when they say no one else will ever be on board with this. And the reason I say that is because they're not having conversations that are leading towards a team dynamic, leading people forward towards one direction. But also, if you at your core don't at least know, like, God is in this with me, right? That means you're not praying. If you feel all alone, then you have essentially said, I don't think God is here. And I don't think they're necessarily intentionally saying that, but they have forgotten that God is with you in this. But if you don't know that God is with you, you don't have hope. Like, that's a precursor to despair and burnout.
Yeah. And I think a lot of ministry professionals, like I said, don't actually identify that early until it's too late. And when I say it's too late, it's like they're checked out to the point where they're looking for a different job, or they're going to drive every single ministry into the ground while they are there. And that is exactly what the devil wants. That is exactly the mentality and the despair that you're talking about that he wants you to feel as a ministry professionals. And so going back to the 3 things to help you rediscover the joy in your parish work, you got to start with why. Like, why the heck am I doing this? There's got to be a better way forward in ministry than what I've been doing. So reconnect with your why.
Absolutely. And I do think that lends nicely into this next one, which is to find joy in solving problems. I really think these are connected, because those precursors that I talked about, feeling all alone in your ministry and feeling so busy that you can't add anything, I think this gets to the root of fixing those feelings. Because when I talk about finding joy in solving problems, I mean literally like looking around, like what are the things that give you headaches in your work, the things that keep you up at night? What are the problems that you hear your coworkers or your parishioners constantly complaining about, and fixing those? It's as simple as that, because when you do that, suddenly people realize that you're in their corner if you're helping them solve problems, and that builds that team dynamic. It reinforces I'm not alone, right? Some of those problems are going to be processes that you have in place in your parish that aren't I'm trying to think of the word. They're processes that are inefficient, and so that they take up more of your time than they need to. So maybe you can find a way to solve those. But those, problems are just inevitable. Like, they're going to come up, and even when you fix one, another one's going to come up. But they don't have to drain you. Like, each of those opportunities, each of those problems is an opportunity to be creative, to bring people together, and just to see God at work in new ways. And one of the ones that I often reference is just when I decided to redo my office so it fit my needs. And that gave permission to the rest of our staff to begin redoing their offices. It was just kind of like this point that said, oh, we can do a new thing here, and that's okay. You know what? I have had this issue. Maybe I should just take some time this Friday and just knock it out. And I think that joy really does grow when you realize that the solving these problems is a part of building the kingdom. It's a part of cultivating the soil. It's a part of getting that soil ready to receive the seed that you need to sow, and making sure that all the tools that you need for good cultivation, for good farming, like, you have all those ready. And just a really simple example, and I can't remember if I've told this story yet or not, but a previous parish that I worked at a few years ago, I installed an iPad kiosk in the parish. And this was to make it easy to do, like, check in, check out for different events. It was to make it easy for people to give just right there at the iPad. It really was meant to simplify a lot of the procedures, things that can be manual tasks or menial tasks now could just be automated by parishioners doing them themselves, right? And after I left, the staff that was still there forgot how to unlock the iPad. 3 years later, nobody's called me, but someone new has come into the parish, and a priest friend of mine came up to me and said, hey, FYI, I was just talking to a spiritual directee of mine that now works in your old alma mater there. And They can't work the iPad. This is 3 years later, and I'm hearing from him, and he just said, "Was anybody called John?" So anyway, she decided to take it on herself to solve this problem. She pulled the iPad off the wall there. She unlocked it from the thing. And lo and behold, I don't even remember doing this, but on the back of the iPad, I had printed off instructions for how to access the iPad. And so for 3 years, no one even bothered turning the iPad over to see if they could fix their problem. So that's what I mean when I say find joy in solving the problem. Because one, that could be really annoying, but also if we can find the humor in it, it's just kind of funny. But two, now there is freedom, whereas there was this iPad, which seemed like a huge waste of money because it's just sitting there and we can't use it. So now they have full access. They can use it. It brings freedom. It brings joy. And it's not something that's going to transform everything, but it's a small piece of momentum. And that feeds joy. That breeds joy. Those are good things, right? So find joy. Look for problems to solve. And when you solve them, experience the joy of the Lord in those moments. Isn't it silly?
I'm shaking my head.
Well, and we have all had some version of that
100%.
in our lives.
Yep.
All right. And number 3, I think this one is going to really help a lot of our listeners. And the third thing to consider when you're looking to rediscover joy in your work is to keep score where it counts. And because it's really easy for us to measure our success by what we call lag measures. And we'll talk about this, break this out down a little bit more. But lag measures are things like mass attendance, sacramental numbers, like who's going through First Communion, confirmation, who's showing up at confession. It's the numbers on the budget, right? Those are lag measures. Those are the results of all the actions you have taken up until now, right? They're the results that lag behind your actions. And when we measure by those, we can, especially if we have a struggling parish, we can be really dissuaded from working harder. It can be something that really makes us want to disconnect from our work because sometimes those numbers hurt. But those are less important than the actual numbers I want us to pay attention to and to keep score on. And this comes from a book that we've both read, we both recommend, which is The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Another just like game changer book for both Ty and for myself. Instead of focus on those lag measures, the results of the actions you have taken to measure your success, focus on the lead measures, the things that you can act on now that will eventually or will influence the results down the road. And so I kind of want to pull this out, some specific examples I could think of in a parish context. The actions you can take now really come down to a few things, but one of those is like intentional invitations made, right? If you want to build your RCIA program, instead of just waiting to see how many people sign up or putting an announcement in the bulletin or whatever it is, no, how many people have you talked to that you think should become Catholic that you've said, hey, I would love if you would come to RCIA with me? That's a lead measure because the more people you invite, the more likely you are to get a few yeses. And that intentionally builds your numbers. Another one that I think maybe we don't think about is how often is your team praying together before meetings, right? I think this is a number you can track because if it's 0, that means you're not intentionally bringing Christ into your team meetings and meaning you're starting behind the ball. So I think you could keep score of that. And you could have like the, you know how they have the signs, it's like number of days since the last accident, on the workforce. You could have number of days since we missed prayer before a meeting or something like that. Another one is how many personal follow-ups then are happening after event? Or you invited 10 people, how many of them didn't respond to you and did you follow up with them? Or you had 10 people go through RCIA, how many personal follow-ups did you make? Like, hey, I saw you got baptized or you had your confirmation this weekend. We're in the Pentecost, right? No, Easter. We're in the season of Easter. I just want to follow up, share my joy with you. You want to grab coffee. Here's some things to think about going forward. How many people have you personally followed up with after that event? Or here's another one, baptisms. How many of the families get 35 emails before the baptism, and then after the baby's baptism, they hear nothing from the church except, hey, do you want to give some money? Or, even leading up to, If you know their baby was baptized, well, let's see, 8 years later, they're going to be ready for first communion. Are you running a list that says, hey, these babies are going to be ready? Have we been following them up? Have we nurtured this relationship over time? Those are lead measures that lead to increased participation in formation events. And then, just finally, like, I think a really good one is for every email you send, you should include a call to action. There's something specific you're trying to get people to do, right? I think that that's really important. So maybe another thing you could track is the number of events and emails that you added a specific call to action into to try and reach out to people. Maybe that is just getting a response so you can start a dialogue with them, whatever it is. I don't know what you're thinking here. Anything kind of to add an input into that?
Well, I think to break it down a little bit further, the lag measures are something you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the results of everything you've done up until now. And I think the way that you'd put it, I wrote it down, is actions up until now. After that, the results are lag. We want to focus on things that we can control. I can control effort. I can control picking up that phone and calling people, opening up that, compose email button and sending out emails. I can follow up. I can do all the things that you gave the examples on. Those are lead measures. Let's focus on those, because what happens, John, is people say, yeah, mass attendance was down. We don't have the new people that are inquiring about the Catholic Church and OCIA. Like, oh man, ministry is just terrible right now. I was like, whoa, wait a sec. Your results are bad now, but show me the work you put in to help, nurture that. And if it's zero, if you're not actually personally inviting people, you're not actually doing anything to help the lag measures to produce, then you're crying over spilled milk. If you didn't do anything, but you're complaining about what's actually the results or the fruit of your work is bad, don't blame the fruit. You got to blame the work. So that's what we're trying to get you to focus on. That's like showing up to a football game and getting blown out 50-0. And you're like, man, we suck. We're terrible. It's like, your game sucked. But show me what you did in practice. Did you work those series? Did you work the goal line series? Did you work the red zone series? Like, whatever. Is your conditioning good? Are your receivers actually able to catch a football? Is your quarterback actually able to throw a football? If they can't do that, but yet you go show up to the game and say, yeah, we got stomped 50-0, that means nothing. What I want to see is, what are you intentionally doing at practice to get you the results that you want? So if you want good mass attendance, guess what? You got to reach out to people. You got to invite people. You got to engage with your parishioners, and you got to have that relationship that makes them feel at home in their own parish. So focus on those lead measures, and John had given a ton of good examples. Focus on those, execute well on those, and the lag measures will come.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Amen, amen. That's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. And this is where it ties then back into the joy, because what we said might sound like busy work, but what the lead measures allow you to do, taking action in these ways, is it reminds you that you have some control over progress in your work in the present, which builds hope. It builds joy. And either way, we know that ministry, evangelization, the thing that you are called to do, it happens in relationships. And all of these things are geared towards building relationship. And so whatever it is that you're tracking, you can track how many people you took to coffee this month, right? Get a $5,000 line item budget that's just you taking people to coffee throughout the course of the year, right? Ask your pastor to put that in and just take people out to coffee. And I guarantee you're going to see that redound to God's glory through your ministry and through your work and in the parish. So again, coming back to rediscovering joy. And I think with that, we can move on to the devil's advocate. Dun dun.
John, I want to be joyful, but mass attendance is down. Giving is flat. Volunteers are hard to find. Until those change, I have more important things to do than make sure I'm having fun at work.
That resonates. I think that that's a trap. I just think that that thinking is a trap, and I want to pray for you. If this is where you're at, I want to reverence that that feeling is real. I can understand it, but I also think it's a trap, and I think the devil wants to keep you there, isolated, resentful, and alone. Right? Joy is a fruit of the Spirit. It is the mark of a Christian. Think about Paul in prison. Think about Paul in prison. The number of times that guy was stoned, beaten, thrown out of town, and eventually now thrown into prison. And the man never lost his joy. Now, I'm not saying he enjoyed every minute of it. That's not what I'm saying. His joy in Christ to be doing the work. So we have to remember that those things that you mentioned, right? Those are leg measures. Those are just results. Those are just the numbers as they are. And they show you what already happened, not what's going to change. And so if you only chase those leg measures, you're going to feel behind constantly, and joy will feel like it's far away. Focus instead on those lead measures, building relationships here and now, because the actions that you take today are going to influence tomorrow's outcomes. So things like those number of intentional conversations you're having, taking people out to coffee, the consistency of your team's prayer, of your prayer, the invitations that are being made to new people each week. When you track those, you're going to realize like our momentum's shifting. Something's changing. And lo and behold, the joy of ministry is returning, even before you notice big number shifts on those other things that right now are taking up all your time, your attention, your imagination, right? Before those numbers even begin to shift, you're going to feel the joy of the Lord working here and now when you focus instead on the lead measures that you control that are in your realm, your sphere of influence, that you can take action on even starting today. And I think with that, we should move on to some actionable steps.
Let's do it.
Of course, we never want to leave you without something that you can do today to take action on this. So I want to really encourage you. If you're someone who is struggling to experience joy in your ministry, if you feel like you don't have time for any one more thing, or you feel like you're all alone in a sea of ministry, I want to encourage you to schedule a discovery call with me, right? If you are ready to rediscover joy in your ministry and to learn how to focus on lead measures that really move the mission forward, you can visit catholicministryprofessionals.com and click on send a message. We'll book your call today to start moving things forward. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us for the Catholic Ministry Professionals podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please send it to a priest or a friend in ministry that could benefit from it.
And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.